In this episode, we narrow the focus from change management in general to the exact moment a model update is about to be released, because this is where good intentions either become disciplined control or become a rushed gamble. When an organization updates a model, it is not simply shipping a new feature. It is potentially changing how decisions are made, which can shift outcomes for customers, employees, and operations. Auditing model update approvals, testing evidence, and release readiness means asking three blunt questions. Who said yes? What proof did they rely on? And how do we know the system is truly ready for the real world? For brand new learners, you can think of this like approving a new bridge for public use, because it is not enough that the design looks good. Someone must confirm it has been tested, that it meets safety requirements, and that emergency plans exist if something unexpected happens. Audit work is evidence-driven, so the goal is not to debate whether the update feels safe, but to verify that the organization can demonstrate readiness with records, results, and accountable decisions. This matters because a model update can pass casual checks, yet still cause harm through subtle shifts in error patterns, fairness impact, or user experience. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain what auditors look for in update approvals, what counts as credible testing evidence, and what release readiness really means for AI systems. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. Approvals are the first part because they represent accountability, and a strong audit begins by examining whether the approval is real or merely symbolic. A meaningful approval is granted by someone with the authority to accept the risk and the responsibility to answer for outcomes, not by someone signing off because it is their turn. Auditors ask whether the approver understood the update scope, the intended change in behavior, and the potential impacts, because approving without understanding is equivalent to not approving at all. They also check whether approvals are tied to a specific model version and configuration, because approving a general plan is not the same as approving what will actually run in production. Beginners sometimes assume approvals are about hierarchy, but in a healthy process, approvals are about informed decision-making, which requires clear information. That means the approval package should include release notes describing what changed, risk classification describing potential impact, and summaries of key test results. If the organization cannot produce this package, the audit will treat the approval as weak because it did not rest on traceable evidence. Another approval-related risk is the problem of rubber stamping, which is when approvals happen so quickly and so routinely that they lose their protective function. Rubber stamping often occurs when approvers are overloaded, when deadlines are tight, or when the organization values speed more than control. Auditors look for signs of this, such as approvals that happen immediately after submission, approvals that lack comments or questions, or approvals granted by people who are not close enough to the risk to evaluate it. They also look for separation of duties, meaning the same person who built the update is not the only person approving it, because independent review helps catch blind spots. For beginners, think of proofreading your own essay. You can miss mistakes because your brain fills in what you intended, but a second reader sees what is actually there. In AI, independent review is especially valuable because model behavior can be surprising, and developers may focus on performance metrics while missing governance concerns. A strong approval process encourages questions, captures concerns, and documents why the update is acceptable despite remaining uncertainty. Testing evidence is the second pillar, and auditors treat it as the heart of release readiness. Testing evidence is not a single metric or a slide with an accuracy score. It is a set of results that demonstrate the update meets requirements and does not introduce unacceptable new risk. Auditors ask what was tested, on what data, using what criteria, and how results compare to the baseline version. They expect to see that testing covers performance, stability, and any policy-driven constraints such as fairness, privacy, or safety expectations. They also look for regression testing, meaning checks that confirm known critical behaviors still work, because updates can break previously stable performance in edge cases. For beginners, it helps to imagine updating a recipe. You might improve flavor, but you also must confirm the dish still cooks through and does not become unsafe. In a model update, improving a headline metric does not prove overall readiness, because the update might increase one type of error while decreasing another. Testing evidence must therefore describe the full error profile and the trade-offs accepted. A particularly important audit question is whether testing data is representative of the real environment. An update can look excellent in a clean test dataset and then fail in production because real data includes missing values, inconsistent formats, and shifting patterns. Auditors ask whether the organization used recent data, whether it included realistic edge cases, and whether it evaluated performance across relevant segments rather than only on averages. Segment testing matters because an update can improve average performance while degrading performance for a subset of cases that are high impact or sensitive. Auditors also ask whether the organization tested robustness, meaning how the model behaves when inputs are noisy or when cases are unlike training examples. For beginners, this is like testing a new pair of shoes not only on a smooth sidewalk, but also on stairs and wet pavement, because the real world includes friction and surprises. Testing evidence should show not just that the model works in ideal conditions, but that it fails safely and predictably when conditions are imperfect. Without that, release readiness is based on hope. Testing evidence must also be traceable, meaning results can be linked back to the exact model version, dataset version, and evaluation procedure. This is crucial because performance can vary based on subtle differences in pre-processing or sampling, and auditors need to know the results are not a one-off accident. Traceability also supports accountability, because if an incident occurs, the organization must be able to show what it tested and why it believed the update was safe. Auditors look for documentation that explains the evaluation process in enough detail that it could be repeated by another team. They also look for evidence that results are not cherry-picked, meaning the organization did not choose only the best run or hide failures. A trustworthy testing package includes limitations, known weaknesses, and the rationale for why those weaknesses are acceptable or mitigated by controls. Beginners should understand that honest evidence includes imperfections, because no real system is perfect. Audit-grade testing evidence is credible when it is transparent about uncertainty and still demonstrates acceptable control. Release readiness is the third pillar, and it goes beyond approvals and testing to include operational preparedness. A model can pass tests and still not be ready if monitoring is not configured, if incident response paths are unclear, or if rollback procedures are untested. Auditors therefore ask whether the organization has confirmed that monitoring will detect drift and performance degradation after release, and whether alerts go to people who can act. They also ask whether the organization has defined triggers that would require pausing or rolling back the update, because release readiness includes being prepared to reverse course. Beginners should see release readiness as preparedness for the full life cycle of the release, not just the launch moment. This includes ensuring that the model's dependencies, such as data feeds and pre-processing steps, are stable and compatible with the new version. It also includes verifying that documentation is updated so operators and reviewers understand what changed and what to watch. A release is ready when the organization can operate it responsibly, not merely when it can deploy it technically. Another aspect of release readiness is ensuring the update is consistent with policy and governance boundaries. If policy requires human review for certain decisions, the update must not expand automation beyond what is allowed. If policy restricts use of certain data, the update must not reintroduce that data through new features or derived signals. Auditors look for evidence that governance checks were applied and that the release will not quietly broaden scope. This is where approvals and testing connect, because policy alignment tests should be part of the testing evidence, and policy implications should be part of the approval package. Beginners should understand that readiness includes social readiness, meaning people know how to use the model output appropriately and understand limitations. If a model update changes the meaning of a score or changes how outputs should be interpreted, the organization must ensure users are not misled. A release is not ready if it will be misunderstood, because misunderstanding is a form of operational risk. Audit-grade evaluation also pays attention to timing and pressure, because the conditions around a release can affect decision quality. When deadlines are tight, Organizations may be tempted to accept incomplete testing, defer monitoring setup, or compress approvals. Auditors look for evidence that the process held under pressure, such as test completion records, documented exceptions, and clear justification for any shortcuts. They also examine whether exceptions were approved by accountable roles and whether follow-up actions were scheduled and tracked. Beginners should know that exceptions are not automatically bad, because emergencies exist, but uncontrolled exceptions are a major risk. A mature organization can explain why an exception was necessary and how it reduced risk despite the shortcut, such as limiting scope or increasing human review temporarily. Release readiness is demonstrated by the organization's ability to keep control even when the environment is stressful. This is a key difference between organizations that manage AI responsibly and those that rely on luck. A common misconception is that once a model update is approved and released, the evaluation is over. In reality, release readiness includes plans for post-release verification, meaning checks that confirm the update behaves in production the way it behaved in testing. Auditors look for post-release monitoring plans, early warning thresholds, and scheduled reviews to compare real outcomes against expected outcomes. They also look for ownership, meaning a named team is responsible for watching the release and responding quickly during the initial period when surprises are most likely. Beginners can think of this like a pilot's first flight after maintenance. The plane may be certified, but the first flight is watched carefully because that is when issues appear. In AI, post-release verification is critical because real-world feedback loops can cause behavior changes that testing did not anticipate. A release is truly ready when the organization is prepared to learn, adjust, and if necessary, reverse the update based on evidence. Audit-grade readiness is about being ready for reality, not just for the launch. To make these ideas concrete, imagine a model used to decide which customer requests should be escalated to a specialist team. The organization updates the model to reduce workload by lowering the number of escalations. Testing evidence might show fewer escalations and slightly improved average resolution time, which sounds good, but an auditor would ask what happened to high-severity cases and whether any segment of customers experienced worse outcomes. They would also ask whether monitoring is set to detect a rise in repeat contacts or unresolved issues, because those signals might indicate the update is misrouting important cases. Approvals would be evaluated by checking whether the decision-makers understood these risks and reviewed evidence about trade-offs. Release readiness would include verifying that the organization can roll back quickly if severe cases are missed and that incident triggers are defined for that scenario. This example shows why audit-grade skepticism is needed even when changes sound beneficial, because optimizing workload can accidentally reduce quality and safety. A responsible release proves it can achieve the objective without unacceptable harm. When you step back, auditing model update approvals, testing evidence, and release readiness is about verifying that a model update is not simply a technical event, but a controlled risk decision backed by accountable approvals and credible evidence. Approvals must be meaningful and tied to the exact release artifact. Testing evidence must be representative, traceable, and transparent about trade-offs, and release readiness must include monitoring, triggers, rollback capability, and operational understanding. For brand new learners, the core takeaway is that AI updates can change outcomes, and outcome changes can affect real people. So the organization must prove it is ready rather than assume it is ready. An auditor looks for proof in records, results, and preparedness, not in confidence or enthusiasm. If you can explain what makes approvals meaningful, what makes testing evidence credible, and what makes a release truly ready for production, you have built a strong Task 13 skill, the ability to evaluate whether AI change is being managed with the discipline required for trustworthy systems.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.